Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the WBL Institute. Today is December 8th, 2021. It is now 4:06, and I know you guys are usually used to hearing Takia's voice, but we're going to switch it up today. My name is Larry Williams, and I'm going to be introing the presentation for this afternoon. Welcome. So, as usual, welcome to the WBL Institute. If you've seen this landing page, whether it's on our calendar or in our presentation, then you know that you are in the right place. So, thank you for being with us. I know that there are a couple other meetings going on, so definitely appreciate your time. And for today, the presenters are myself, Larry Williams, Mr. Desmond Jardine, Bruce Levison, Joe Pinto, and of course, Mr. Kia Weeks. So just to quickly go over the meeting norms, as we do every session, we all participate to make this session most useful for everyone. We commit to being present during the session and during the breakouts. We encourage you to speak up live and or engage in the chat. You will complete the exit survey before you leave. All of this to say that the two most important things are completing the survey and yes, your interaction. So please, we encourage you to talk. So what are we talking about today? Well, we just went over the intros. WBL is a continuum. We're going to go over a review of the CTE student expectations, the WBL activities grid for school year 21 and 22, how the continuum works, going beyond 54 hours. Then in the wrap up, we're also going to do a poll, then get into a group discussion, breakout discussion, I apologize. Then we're going to discuss opportunities for students with IEPs, announcements and final thoughts, and share resources with you guys. So to kick us off, I'm going to pass it over to Takia.
Thanks so much, Larry. I think you do a better job of this than I do. So, we might see you do this a little bit more often. For everyone who's here, welcome. And we just want to reiterate some of the work that, you guys are all doing and what it's building toward. And you guys have already seen this and heard it, but, doesn't hurt to repeat. At this point, CTE has some specific expectations for this year, especially around use of CTS. And we're really wanting to drive the work that's going on so that we can not just, see it as reports in the system, but make sure that your students are getting to those 54 hours, which are really going to be critical for them experience-wise and also to graduate with their endorsed diploma. So the first one, all students enrolled in CTE will have profiles in CTS. Juniors and seniors this was October 29th, so that has passed already. And then sophomores hopefully would have been done earlier this month. And then we have seniors, all seniors potentially will have completed 54 hours by January. So there's still time for that milestone. And then all juniors, or 75% or higher specifically, will have completed a resume and one mock interview by June of next year. So we really are looking to see for the juniors and the younger students experiences and them being able to, at some point, start to put together the documents that will make up their portfolio. And then finally, all or 75% or higher sophomores will complete one activity on CTS by June of next year. So I think it's really, it's aspirational for us to start getting exposure to students after they've been in school for at least a year. They've kind of figured out, what their pathway is. They have gotten some maybe assessments done to get a sense of what their skills are. And then we want to be driving them toward actual activities with industry partners to really make this real for them. And so hopefully everybody has seen this. I hope it feels doable. We are trying our best to support you guys in getting it done, but just want to make sure that we frame today's work with those expectations. So, this brings us to the $1 million question, which is, moving to the next slide, how can I get my students to achieve at least 54 hours of work-based learning? And we really want to highlight at least, because 54 hours is great, but really it is the tip of the iceberg. And it's not going to be enough in our estimation to really see that a student is prepared. But it is the number that, we hover around because that is certainly, one of the things through the NICET expectations that hopefully students are at least able to hit. So we're looking at that number as kind of the starting point. And we know that it's difficult with everything else that you have on your plates, but we really want to be able to push so that you have the ability to make sure that every student gets that exposure and leaves knowing a little bit more about their next outcome, their post-secondary outcome. So with that said, we do want to make sure that, if you are not sure how to do this, that you leave here today feeling more positive about that expectation. And so that brings us to the activity grid. The activity grid is a document that was created through a couple of different sub-team members. And, we use it very, very often at this point to refer you guys to the activities that are NICET approved. And we don't say approved lightly. These are the list of activities that so far NICET has said we are cleared for you to have students experience and then add the hours into CTS. So these specific activities are the ones that engage industry with your young person and also give them the opportunity to grow their skills, whether they be their technical skills and their 21st century skills. And also these activities are ones which hopefully get your students outside of the school building potentially, but also actual interactions happening with them and professionals. And we know that there have been adjustments made because of COVID, but at the end of the day, this is the list that has been released through the handbook that was provided from NICET. So I don't need to go into every one of these activities, but I want to make sure that you guys have access to the grid. So we want to be hopefully sure that, by putting the link in the chat, you go through it, you read what the examples are of all of these, and that you are feeling comfortable about how to actually put these together on behalf of your students. So I'm going to pause so that we can put that link in the chat. And then I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about what the continuum should look like as we kind of keep going to make sure that our students are able to add the experiences to 54. And thank you for doing that, Desmond. I appreciate it. So hopefully you guys take a minute to go through the grid. And moving to the next slide, we want you guys to be able to think about these experiences on a continuum. And, we stress that high quality work-based learning is what we want to provide. There's so many activities that maybe can be slapped together. And I know that nobody here is doing that. But at the same time, I think we have to be aware of what the foundational pieces are that make an activity high quality. And so, if you click on the next slide, this is kind of how we've divided the experience. So we know that students are coming in ninth grade, and potentially you might do something very small with them, maybe a career day, something that is enabling them to gain about 5 hours at minimum. We want to make sure that we can parse this out in a way that feels doable for you. So 10th grade, 10 hours, 11th grade, 20 hours, and 11th grade usually is when we start doing more project-based work and work that is internship related. And then the 12th grade is where probably students will be acquiring the majority of their hours. So if you think about it in this way, it doesn't seem that difficult. And so moving along, you'll see that, we also divvy this up on the continuum of how career awareness, career exploration, and career preparation is experienced. Potentially, you would be doing your career awareness activities in the beginning of a student's experience in high school. And then they would be going on to exploration, and then finally preparation once they've acquired those skills through practice and kind of a continued sustained engagement with industry. So hopefully we would be shifting from one to the next as students get older. And we know that this continuum doesn't always fit for our Ls and for our IEP students, but for the most part, we want students to be able to move along in an organized way to the last step of their WBL experience. And so moving to the next slide, these are examples on the grid of the types of WBL that have a place on the continuum. As you can see, guest speakers, career days, career mentoring, and workplace tours are usually experienced in the early part of a student's career. And then moving on to things like industry-led projects, informational interviews, and job shadowing, where you're at this point injecting industry in, but they're still probably on the school premise. And they're making sure that they can acquire those skills that would hopefully help them to be ready to go out. And then finally, once we get to closer to the 12th grade, they start leaving the building. They start actually being in an office or on an actual work site where they can do mock interviews and internships and things like co-ops and apprenticeships. So those are experiences that a more seasoned student would get the opportunity to do. And also it's experiences that a partner that you have kind of gets to the pinnacle of their relationship with you. Most times when you've just met a partner, the expectation or the ask is usually light, starting in the career awareness bucket. And once you've deepened that relationship, you start moving toward the types of experiences under career preparation. And so also we think about multiple places on the curriculum that would help a student to, get this kind of under their belt. So with workplace challenges, you really want to think about the exposure and building up that excitement about what the pathway is. And then you move to a place where you're looking to help the student to deepen their skills and to showcase what they've done over the years. So at that point, they have a portfolio, they know how to present themselves, they know how to talk about the experiences that they've had, and really be marketable as a part of the career pipeline that you're building. So I am going to stop there and pass the baton to my colleague, Desmond.
I'm sorry, Takia, before we move on, Damiano made a very good point in the chat, and maybe we should quickly mention, if we can go back to the previous slide, that if you see in this continuum, the work-based learning activities in green, the ones that have asterisks are the NICET approved ones. So this is an acknowledgement that there are so many other kinds of work-based learning you can do. Unfortunately, some of them aren't explicitly NICET approved, although can be, depending upon how they are designed and how they are run. So I don't know if you wanted to speak a little bit to that.
Sure, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. And Damiano, thank you for putting that in the chat. We're at the point now where what NICET deems to be approved is still subject to change. NICET has just recently invited a lot of the community to participate in subgroups to start planning around how WBL should look across the state. And so right now with the asterisks, we are making sure that people can focus on those because those are the ones that will gain students hours. But at the same time, the ones that don't have the asterisks are very important for skills building. So we don't want to overshadow any of the non-asterisk activities. We do want to say that they are stepping stones to be able to get to your holy grails of internship, et cetera. But in the meantime, I think we're really trying to be true to what NICET will accept. And we want you guys to focus on the ones that at this point in time will be garnering your student hours in CTS so that they're hopefully having the experiences that they need to have, but also making sure that they get to that endorsed diploma at the end. So again, we know that these may change, but at the moment, the grid is where you should be looking for the ones that count at the moment. And any changes that will be happening, we usually will have a whole session dedicated to those so that you guys are understanding of what that change looks like. More recently this year, the addition of the research project was highlighted because it is something that was not there before. And I think you guys really should pay attention to what the description of that activity is so that you can see if you have activities that fit in that bucket. And so I see in the chat, Damiano is also putting a plug in for the CTS support hour on how to record work-based learning in CTS. And hopefully these two things will tie together so that you guys are feeling pretty confident about how you're putting in those hours. So with that, I'll pass it over to Desmond.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Takia. So as Takia was saying, so much is built around this magic number of 54 hours and fulfilling the technical mandates of the New York State, Education Department, right? And so we know that 54 hours, we know that number. That number comes around, seat time for a class, right? So the state is basically telling us that the equivalent of what would be, essentially one semester, I think, so, of seat time for a student would satisfy them in terms of what a student gets from work-based learning. But what is that, right? What does a student get within that 54 hours generally? Can we get to the next slide, please? So, when we think about what a student is exposed to on that time, even if it's a singular experience, the student is definitely exposed to an array of experiences, highs, lows, a lot of learning about themselves, a lot of learning about the industry, but also learning about the way those two things intersect. Students do always get to learn the value of networking, especially as we described above. If this is part of a continuum, if students get small chunks of access per year, these are stackable, just like credentials, right? These experiences are stackable, and students carry the learning from one to the next if this is a continuous process for them, right? And of course, throughout this process, because they are engaging with the real working world, they do walk away with these real skills that are what the employers are looking for right now. But what that also does is it helps students get a perspective as to what employers will be looking for tomorrow, and really getting a better ability to step into that space tomorrow with credentials, but also with just the knowledge of what the industry is doing. And so, what we also want to make sure that we remember is throughout this 54 hours, throughout this time, as the students get the baseline of 54 hours, they are supported by class instruction, caring adults, in the school and in the community. But it's really about creating a marker that's universally understood and respected by employers. But that's not really where things end, as Takia stated, right? This is just the beginning. This is just literally the first step. Next slide, please. So we want to think about beyond that 54 hours, right? Like, as we said, that's the first step. But what does a student look like if they've been able to take multiple steps? And if we can get to the place where we can truly, as schools and as a system, create a continuum within our schools of WBL across a student's time in our building. So again, in the ideal, what does that look like? The potential of a student having 54 hours of WBL per year. Again, thinking about the way mandates and just the numbers work, that 54 hours per year now triggers a whole different credential for the student, where if they do reach 216 hours, they now are CDOS eligible, right? Which not only, again, is an acknowledgement of the time spent, but that CDOS credentialing also gives another hard marker for the employment world to easily recognize as a student who has the necessary skills and abilities to move into the working world. Over that time, we also have the ability for students to develop relationships, but for the school to develop relationships across a pantheon of industry, but also across a pantheon of the school's need, right? So it's really about being able to create the time and space where the school can create these industry relationships across each grade and activity type, so as to really have the continuity and the creativity, so as to honestly cut down on your workload at the back end, right? The goal is to create this robust network so that students can really pick and play, pick things apart, have experiences that build on themselves, but also have a network that you can kind of just continually touch on and update, a little bit each year, as opposed to feeling as if we're constantly, reinventing the wheel and just going at large chunks of time for our students. So, for us, that's the goal. That's the ideal, is to really build out a solid and a system that feeds on itself and continues to grow and continues to better itself over time. With that, we wanted to get to our first poll question.
Well,
Before we do the
before-
poll, Karen has a
Did
question.
have a question? Yes. Sorry.
Hi, Desmond. I never put, thank you. I never put 2 and 2 together with the CDOS and the work-based learning credentials on a diploma. But we have a problem that I think you can only do 2 or 3 comments when the student graduates, because if they have an advanced Regents diploma and the work-based learning and I don't think all of that can go on a diploma. So I don't know how to prioritize. I mean, let's be honest, I'm in a CTE school, so advanced, the first thing they're gonna put down is an advanced Regents diploma, okay? Before they jump into a CDOS. I mean, what I'm trying to say is which one is more important, or which one has more weight? Would it be a CDOS endorsement, or would it be a work-based learning endorsement?
Wow. I would say that's something we should probably discuss with PAQ and follow up online. I genuinely feel that, the stackable credentials that a student gets, in their endorsement line are probably more important to the actual field that they're going through, right? But the CDOS is meant to be somewhat of a generalized standard. So I
Right.
think that becomes the response, right? Is that if you're a welder, I want to know that you have the welding credentials. But if
Right.
I'm like just a general employer, that CDOS tag is meant to be the acknowledgement of baseline employability, right?
Good point. Good
I
point.
I would tend to agree with that, Desmond. And I just dropped into the chat a document that was put together with the help of PAQ to really break down what the differences are between the NICET approved programs and the CDOS technical, the credential, as opposed to the pathway. So the two are a little bit different, but also for folks who are interested in doing both, again, as to Desmond's point, it really is more industry facing around which one would be more attractive. Some industries have definitely looked at the endorsement and said, yes, this is great. This helps to show us that the student has demonstrated that they can be a part of our industry, where others right now are maybe light years ahead of us, so that their endorsement may not feel as though it's relevant yet. So I know that we're still working with NICET in trying to get up to speed with how fast industry is changing, and to make sure that we're aligning with that, with the endorsements and the programs that we have. And I see Damiano has his hand raised. Go for it, Damiano.
Sorry, I was just going to say that based on my understanding of high school discharge codes, that you can only apply one or the other. And so typically from experience, it appears that the technical endorsement, although not requiring 54 hours, but some form of work-based learning, tends to outrank that of the CDOS endorsement, which is also separate from the CDOS commencement credential, because one is not equivocal to a high school diploma and the other one is in addition to. And so I would go back to academic policy and look at that, because the document you shared that Kendall made is like a synthesis of that information. And it also doesn't state that there's like a combination effort or thing like that. And then the last thing that I just want to share out is that there isn't a specific commencement endorsement seal for the diploma that's strictly based on work-based learning exclusively. Like just reaching that one metric doesn't qualify you for a seal. And
Right.
that's really
Right.
what I wanted to add.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I just
Go ahead,
caught, I just caught myself in that, because there is a CDOS credential, but there is not work-based learning. We just have to add it to their transcripts once they meet the 54 hours. So, but it's nice to know. I mean, I just wanted to say thank you again for bringing it up, that if the kids do that many hours, that it works together. I just never put it together, and I wanted to thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And to Damiano's point, your academic integration folks will probably be the best ones to go to. So I will give it back to Desmond.
So, okay, so I guess I'll actually read the poll question. Our first poll question is, what WBL activity are you least comfortable planning? There you go. Poll is out.
And again, just to remind everyone, this is a sampling of the NICET approved work-based learning activities.
Absolutely even split. That's amazing. One each. Awesome. So did we want to break into the groups now? Was that?
Well, we still have a minute. If anyone hasn't taken the poll yet and wants to, oh, we have one more participant. I think we're around 7 or 8 folks. So, as close to full participation as possible. But yeah, this is surprisingly a pretty even split.
I'll just clarify for a second because I'm the one who picks community service. But I just said that only because we have a community service coordinator who does all of that. So that's why I'm not comfortable with it, because it's not something I have to do. It's not because it's something that I think I can't do.
Got it.
It's just it doesn't come across my desk because somebody else handles it instead of me.
No, that makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference for me.
Yeah. And so looking now at the poll, it seems that job shadows have inched forward as the highest ranking one. Do we want to stay together and kind of go through all of them, or do we feel like we would use the time more wisely in breakouts? And Joe, I'll pass back the baton to see what might be the best way to go forward.
Yeah, let's have the next slide, please. So this is our discussion question. What makes the activity that you chose challenging, and how can you get more comfortable with it in the interest of beginning to have this activity be more of a featured part of your range of work-based learning at your school? I just, given the numbers, it's funny, it feels like we're right at the cusp where we could stay together or we could break out. I would really, this is to everyone who's attending today, this is really your time. And I want to make sure that we use it in the way that you deem the most helpful. Do folks, if you want to quickly, speak up in the chat or anything, do folks have we have a vote for breakout. We have a breakout, no breakout.
Oh.
So it looks like we can just split into 2 rooms if you want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we do at least 2 spaces, right? So the number of folks in each space is a little bit smaller, and we have a greater chance of everybody's voice being heard. And we're going to take about 8 to 10 minutes to talk about this. That dimension that was just raised about, well, I answered, I forget who said it, but somebody said, I chose this answer not because it doesn't happen at my school, but because I don't do it, somebody else does. So, we hadn't thought about that dimension when we planned out this activity. So feel free when you go in, if it's something that you're not comfortable with, but it's taken care of at your school anyway by somebody in another role, you don't really need to talk too much about it. If you want to, you can feel free to talk a little bit more about an activity that is more of a growing edge for you as a work-based learning coordinator, and B, not yet represented in the range of things that are being done in your school, but it's something that you want to see there in the coming months, and by next year for sure. Maybe focus a little bit about that and talk with your colleagues about some of the things that you think have been sticking points, some of the things that make it a little bit difficult and how you might move through that. This calls for some vulnerability, of course, and we hope that you'll all feel safe and confident in your discussion space, talking about what the obstacles have been, and how you can imagine getting into and through and past them. Think about the kinds of help you might want to ask for from us via coaching, or from your fellow coordinators at other schools who feel strong, maybe in the areas where you feel a little less strong, or from members of your own school team, including teachers, including your administration. And so, Larry, if you want to send us into breakouts, 2 breakouts, and then maybe it's 4:36 now. Let's say if we put about, let's put 7 minutes on the clock, and then come back after that and do a little bit of light sharing out before we move into the next phase of the session.
We came back and we had just started getting the good stuff.
Thank you, Desmond.
Yeah.
Thank you, Desmond.
Oh man, that was great. Yeah. It's just starting to get juicy, man. It's just starting to get juicy. It
I
feels
Yeah, I
like-
know. It's like
Yeah,
that's what happened in all the groups.
Yeah, Emily, we noticed that you we lost you. Please, we're going to do a few minutes of sharing out before we move on. So if you feel like you want to share with the main group what you were going to say,
No.
please feel free.
I just wanted to say that I didn't have a lot of advice necessarily, but I wanted to say that, like, you're not alone in feeling very overwhelmed. I think we all feel that. I know that there was a period of time where, especially when we were having our meetings in person, we were always being asked, like, how many classes do you teach? Like, what are your other responsibilities? So that we can all see that, like, all of us are dealing with this. And so, like, I know it feels very isolating sometimes to feel like you're the only one who's dealing with being the sole person doing stuff. And you're not, because we all feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
It was more just like a solidarity statement than anything.
Yeah, no, and it helps. Thank you for saying that. I mean, I think, there's a way in which, the expressions of solidarity don't necessarily like tangibly remove work from anyone's plate, but they do make it feel less lonely. It makes it feel, sort of a more of something that we're all going through. So thank you for saying that. So this was the originally posed share out question. What did you discuss? What concrete steps will you take to expand WBL offerings at your school? I think we can interpret this question much more loosely. It sounds like the groups went in various different directions. I heard, one thing I heard in my group was just this idea of the difference between, or the relatedness and the interconnection of both feeling not as skilled in work-based learning as one wants to be, but also not feeling like you have the time to develop those skills and or the space or the capacity to actually really push in that direction. And that's something that we really understand. Do folks want to, share out a little bit about what, as you talked about these, pardon me, these issues in your breakout room, what new understandings came to light? Any kind of ideas, any revelations, any thoughts about what to do next, how to seek help from this group, how to seek help or new directions within your school? Anyone, please feel free to speak up or to type in the chat where you are in all of this.
Joe, can I just say in my group, I know that there are folks who definitely can speak up, but the last thing I was trying to say before we got yanked away was that for those people who haven't necessarily used down their SIF funds yet, doing an internship and or a workplace challenge is probably going to be one of your best bets in terms of making sure that students are able to get the activities that you want for them to and be paid. And so thinking about your SYP providers and those that found slots for your students during the summer, you having the SIF funds may also be an option to be able to reach out to some of these one-time hosts and say, hey, I have students during the year who may not be participating in Work, Learn, Grow, who also can do internships or partner with them to do challenges. So I just wanted to leave that out there as an option. And I know we had a couple people in our group, Lori and Karen. Hopefully you guys can chime in.
I realized I did a work-based, I don't really know much about the workplace challenges. And the one that I've been working with is Suit Up, is a youth partnership. And we've been working with different corporate sponsors. But when you just mentioned what my responsibility would have to, what I would need to do in terms of making them a real partner, I could already feel the weight on my shoulders and my heart coming out of my chest. I'd rather them get the hours, to be quite honest with you. Of course, the hours plus the money would be great. But in time, I will figure that out. But it's nice to know that there are funds to do it and how I have to get that, how I have to learn what this is about and how to implement this in my school. Because if the funds are there, I mean, hey, if you don't use it, you lose it. Isn't that what happens?
Exactly. And we can reach out and help you figure out the fund situation too. One of the things is you might want to talk to your principal and such and find out from him, or we could have one of our constituents come out and help with that.
I would really appreciate that, because this youth partnership that I really work with, I mean, we're really growing this partnership, and there are other people here that should look it up. It's called Suit Up. And they bring the corporate, the partners to us, and, all I got to do is sign my students up, give them a little pre-work, and they work with, volunteers in solving a corporate challenge. And it's incredible watching the collaboration of teams and the excitement they have to, put together in 65 minutes is a presentation is incredible. It's just watching it happen is incredible. 2 hours was great, but they also have hackathons, which I'm going to have to really get into because it's hard to pull kids out of classes. And that's the challenge I'm running into.
Yeah.
Well, this could also occur after school too.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to occur during your school day. You could work it out. And that's where the workplace challenge comes in. You work it out after school, and some of the work could be done remotely. And so they could do it from home, and you can Zoom, have Zoom meetings and stuff. But we could discuss that later. If you come to Friday's meetings, which I'll talk about shortly, we could help you with some of that during the workplace challenge meetings on Fridays.
Yeah, and please reach out to us, and please come to coaching. It sounds like one of the kind of the pieces of work that we have cut out for us is figuring out how to help you all find ways to kind of depressurize places, to kind of like carve out some time, carve out some help, find out things that like not reinvent the wheel, find things that are out there and ready and available to you. So, please seek us out more, come to coaching. And this is something that we are happy to continue to help with. We're running a little bit behind, so thank you for everyone who's given some feedback and shared out about your discussion. I'm going to pass it back to Takia so we can continue with the session.
Well, this is actually Bruce's slide, so I'm going to let him take it away.
So this is what I was talking about before. So the CTE Workplace Challenge support sessions are every Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. And this is exactly what we were talking about. So Desmond runs these, and we can work with you to help you with your SIF funding. We can also work with you to set up plans for starting a workplace challenge in the 10th grade, growing it to the 11th grade, maybe even forming it into the 12th grade, helping you then form partnerships with these people that are centrally located in the beginning, or we could help you, start your own. So these activities are, NICET approved. They really should be the base, not the end. The end should be the internship, but this will help prepare your students for that. And it gives them a lot of the background that they need to get into an internship. So these are what the meetings are for. And as I said, there's one this Friday, but every Friday from 3 to 4, and we can help you with all the details of building a workplace challenge for your school. They run them through the main groups. We just had one in the fall. There'll be one in the summer. I don't think there was one in the spring yet, but you could start it with SIF funds on your own, and we could help you, initiate that. So definitely come to the meeting this Friday, and we could start beginning to talk about it then.
And I'm dropping the link in the chat for the exit ticket, which is the way that you would sign up for coaching. So please don't forget to fill out your exit ticket if you want to come in for coaching next week. And with that, I want to pass over the baton to Audrey Mangan, who is here via phone from DCIS, specifically the TCACs, to tell us a little bit more about opportunities that are on the horizon for your students with IEPs. So Audrey, please.
Great, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't get it. Um, I have some slides. I can't see the screen, but I am going to go along with the slides that I sent, if that's okay, Takia. Hopefully the first slide says work-based learning programs.
Oh, Takia, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry, Audrey. We added in your
I
slides.
am
The first one talks about the top program. The second one
fantastic.
about the pre-employment transition services. And then the last one is all the TCACs.
Beautiful. Okay, so great. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody for coming on the call on such a dark evening as the days are getting shorter. We have the top program this year. We are running it. We are blessed under the pandemic to be able to run this program because we do have it for 15 hours and students get a stipend of $200. Now, this top program is for a school-based, work-based learning experience for students with IEPs. And I'm glad to hear people talking about the CDOS and having students get the on-work site work experience, because you can utilize this program and these monies for students to be able to participate in those work-based learning experiences. And of course, they can be compensated for work that they're doing in the school if it's along your continuum, but you can use these funds as long as the student is in a work-based learning experience. These funds can be used. So they, of course, with CTE, we don't have to talk to your group about aligning students' needs with their work-based experience, because the students are self-selecting, they are passionate about their trade, and they really want to do the work, and that's fantastic. So we do have some online remote experiences for students. One of the groups that we're working with is the ACE mentorship program for architecture. And any student that indicated in their top application that they were interested in architecture, we've connected them to this group that puts them connected to real architects working on different projects. So the students really get an immersive experience, which is really nice. And if the students are working at their school, as long as it's outside of the school day, those hours can be claimed, and it's a rolling hours piece. So by the time your students finish their 15 hours, you submit their timesheet, and then we connect with CBO, Central Business Office, to get the students paid. So we also included in the slides the link to the application for students. We encourage everybody to apply as quickly as possible. And of course, we follow New York State labor laws. You have to submit the students' working papers, things of that nature. It's all in the application. So I'm going to go to the next slide, please. So we hope that you can get those applications out to us as quickly as possible. We're eager to get started. We do have like 460 slots, but it is a lottery. So if we get more than 460, we'll run the lottery. It's a random number selection piece, and we'll let you know as soon as that lottery is run as to who gets in. But there's 460 per borough, so please, we encourage everybody to apply, and we want to help out in areas we can with that compensation for students, because we know that students who engage in work-based learning programs have better outcomes for job retention and career development, and if you take a longitudinal view of the quantitative data. So our next program, if you could turn to the next slide, please, is the pre-ETS program. We have connected with Access BR, and what we're doing is we're having students sign up for individual supports and services around pre-employment transition services where our pre-ETS providers, who are New York City teachers, meet with the students in the afternoons, like usually between 4 and 8 o'clock, and they go over 5 services and activities students can engage with. We go over with them job and career exploration, post-secondary training, workplace readiness, self-advocacy, and work-based learning. So these sessions take place with the student either one-on-one or 2 students together, but it's a really in-depth view of all of these different activities for the students. And it's connected to Access VR. So the student then gets on the Access VR radar through their internal systems, and that helps with students who might need those services long-term, or maybe because the students are doing so well in your CTE program and they get our pre-ET services, they don't need Access VR for the future. So we want to deliver services as early as possible. We're taking 14-year-olds and up. So if you have any students with IEPs who you feel could get benefit from these different services, we're here for you. I am going to send the links for these services to the fantastic Takia and amazing Larry. So this
Thank
way they
you.
can be put in your resource folder.
Right.
And we are ready and willing to help. We also run student-facing workshops on things like self-advocacy, disability disclosure, which we know is a big thing under the ADA. So our last slide is all of the TCACs throughout the city. We're willing and happy to come to your school, deliver those presentations to students. The student-facing presentations start on page 16. And we're here, we're ready, and we've had such great experiences, especially with the CTE students who are enrolled in CTE. Oh my God, it's been fantastic.
Thank
And
you,
we're honored
Audrey.
to help serve.
Thank you, thank you. We definitely appreciate the time you're spending with us. We're at time, but we just want to get through a couple more slides, so don't leave yet, guys. I want to make sure that we are able to at least give you the heads up about what is coming down the pike. So again, I want to pass the baton back to Larry to close us out.
Thanks, Takia. So coaching is still available. The next WBL coaching session is at 4 p.m. next Wednesday, December 15th. We're going to be focused on helping new WBL coordinators. So please sign up if you are new to the role. And even if you're not new to the role, please sign up. Our next live session is actually going to be at 4 p.m. January 9th, 2022. So, but if you guys come to the coaching session next week, then we'll wish you happy holidays at that one. How can you get CTS support? The next CTS support technical support session is 3 p.m. on Tuesday, January 11, 2022, and the topic is reports and data. As always, we're also sharing the resources with the calendar, the link to the calendar, so you can see all of our upcoming offerings for next year. The session recess folder, we shared the link with that, so you can get all the presentation information, the resources, and along with the resources shared by Audrey, all of that will be sent to you. And then, of course, Takia already dropped the link for the CTE exit ticket in the chat box, so please definitely fill that out. And on behalf of the whole WBL Institute team, we thank you for attending. And if you need more information, please contact Takia, myself, or Desmond.
Thanks so much, guys. We just want to remind you again, please come to the Friday workplace challenge space. If you have any questions or you feel like you might need support in that, Desmond and Bruce as well will be supporting you there. And then for those that have SIF funds that haven't been spent down, we really, really want you to think about how to purpose that money so that you can make a dent in it before the year is out, or at least starting in the new year. Because if we don't spend the funds, we get less as the years go by. So please think about ways that you can intentionally utilize that money. And we wish you guys all happy holidays, but we know we'll see some of you next week, and there'll be free virtual eggnog. So hopefully we will see you guys there. Have a great evening. Thanks for being with us.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Don't forget the exit ticket. Thank you.
Thank you.